Tidying up the office the other day, managed to get my computer working, which you'll see on Friday, and I happened to spot this in the window. It's pretty cool, isn't it? It's quite a nice, juicy apple. Actually, it's not a real apple. It's actually made out of wood. But this technique is very similar to the kind of technique my ancestors would have used. My ancestors were once bodgers. That's people who would go into the forest, live there for months and months, and build chairs. But the reason they're called bodgers is they build a specific part of the chair. So my ancestors used to make the legs of chairs, what is now known as Windsor chairs. And I happened to go to a chair museum back when I was researching my family. And there was a guy who was using the exact same techniques to make artwork. So he made this apple out of the same kind of turning that they would have used in my ancestors' day. This is made out of African blackwood, and I've got a few others that I want to show you before I get into the story. This is a little bit more obvious that it's made out of wood. See the patterns? I quite like the fact that they've left it so raw. If anyone's wondering, this is made out of a type of wood called spotted beech. And as you can see, it's still got the grooves that we used when the tree came down. I think it makes the apple look more textured. This here, this is actually made out of purple heart wood, although it's not really. Apart from it being slightly darker, you can see that they've still got the texture in the original artwork, and I think that lump there makes it look more special. It kind of looks different, a pear and an apple, but it's really well detailed and actually looks like. I use it as a paperweight nowadays, but it's actually really good. Now the next one I'm going to show you is extra special and also hard to look after. Check this one out. See the bumbleness? This is made out of a Bap Elusia tree. And you see on here, this is actually the seeds. Now, the way the seeds migrate so that the tree can reproduce is using seeds, which you can see some of them are still trapped in the holes. Now, I've actually written on the bottom, keep away from fire. And that's because these seeds are actually reproduced using fire. These seeds are actually reproduced using fire. And sorry about that earlier, my phone was playing up. But it's reproduced, so the heating goes off and it makes a popping sound. And that's how the seeds will spread. Probably the one thing I'm going to have to grab if my house ever burns down, or the fire is only going to get a lot more worse. But I kept those for when I went to visit the chair museum, because I wanted to learn more about my ancestors, and I wanted to learn more about my family, because I don't know that much about my grand side of the family. And actually researching it made me really close to the people that I researched. So what has that got to do with today's story? Well, part of the reason why I did the research was I made a bet with myself. I betted that I wouldn't be able to get up to 1960 in the family tree and progress on and on and on and on and on. I actually got quite far. I actually got up to the 17th century. So sort of 1700s, which is quite an achievement. I'll have to go through it in a separate video on how far I went, and the kind of things I discovered was quite interesting. Rapunzel and Flynn are about to make a bet, which they're going to have to add a lot more rules for. You see, Flynn believes that he could beat Rapunzel at anything. Rapunzel, on the other hand, has a little trick up her sleeve, which I think Flynn has quite forgotten in today's story. Today's story is a Tangled story, and it's called Rapunzel's Challenge. Rapunzel and Flynn stood in the forest. She had bet him she could do anything better than he could. Now she had to prove it. Flynn pointed to a tall tree. "Do you think you can beat me to the top?" Rapunzel squared her shoulders. In a flash, she drew her hair onto a branch and swung gracefully up into the tree. Flynn pulled two arrows out from his arrow bag and used them to climb right past Rapunzel. Suddenly, from up above, Flynn heard a voice call down, "Yoo-hoo! Hey, Flynn! Hey, Ryder! What took you so long?" Flynn looked up and gasped. Rapunzel was sitting at the top of the tree. "How did you get up there so fast?" he cried. Rapunzel pointed to her golden hair. "That's cheating," Flynn argued. "You can't use your hair to help you. I demand another contest, and this time no hair." The two decided to have a race next. First one to the river wins, Flynn declared. Rapunzel and Flynn sprang forward, but as Flynn raced along, he accidentally tripped over Rapunzel's hair. Rapunzel didn't realise what had happened. She kept running and sprinted to the river's edge. She had won. "That wasn't fair," Flynn panted. "You used your hair again." Flynn insisted they have one more contest. Rapunzel sighed. She'd beaten Flynn twice. Surely she could do it again. Flynn pointed to the river. "Let's see who can cross the river first," he said. Rapunzel was nervous. She had never learnt to swim. As Flynn dived into the water, Rapunzel looked around. How could she get across? Suddenly, she had an idea. Flynn panted as he climbed out of the river. "I did it," he said. "I won." Then he looked up. Rapunzel was standing on the shore, completely dry. "I don't understand," Flynn said. "You got here first, but you're not even wet." "That's because I didn't swim across," Rapunzel replied. "I swung across." "Oh, I see," Flynn said. He shook the water from his hair and grinned slyly. "Then I win. Remember, no hair." "But I didn't use my hair," Rapunzel said, and she held up a long, thick vine. Flynn sighed. He hated to admit it, but Rapunzel had beaten him fair and square. Just as I managed to find a lot out of about my family. All it took was motivation, dedication, and quite a little bit of money, actually, perhaps a lot more than I've got right now. But at least I was able to keep these as a keepsake, to remind me of my achievement, and maybe even remind me of my adventures to come. Perhaps you'll do a dare, or a bet. Perhaps you'll bet yourself something extra special tomorrow. See if it'll motivate you. I'll give you an example of a bet that I want to see if you guys can do, and comment if you manage it. I bet that you could do the housework faster than your parents. Or if you're a student living at home alone, see if you could do the housework faster than you can do your studies. And I'll give you one for the adults too. See if you can complete a project. Don't worry if it's a very hard project, but see if you can get the majority of it done in one single day. Now be warned, I'm not saying that you have to complete the project. Get the majority of it done, and it has to be 100%. Now don't worry about pressure. I'm only letting this as a bet. You can either follow it or you don't. That's the point of a bet. You don't have to follow my bet if you don't want to. But I implore you to think about it. Think about the motivation that comes with it. And I'll see you tomorrow for another story. And I'll see you next week as well in a different location. I'll tell you on Tuesday where I'm going. But until then, I feel like an apple now. Good night, and bye for now.